Welcome back, guys. This is the game of the century, 1956, Round 8, Rosenwald Trophy. Played between Bobby Fischer and Byrne. The game opens with Byrne playing knight to f3, a flexible and safe move. Fischer mirrors with knight to f6. Both players are preparing for a quiet, strategic opening, but beneath the surface, tension is building. Byrne pushes his pawn to c4, controlling the center, and Fischer responds by fianchettoing his bishop with pawn to g6. Fischer loves his bishops on long diagonals, and we already see his preference for fluid, flexible positions. Byrne develops his knight to c3, aiming for greater control over the center, and Fischer continues his development with bishop to g7, eyeing the long diagonal. Both sides are quietly preparing, but Fischer is about to shift gears. Byrne strikes with a central pawn pushed to d4, trying to solidify control. Fischer, always the tactician, castles preparing to launch a kingside attack at the right moment. Byrne develops his bishop to f4, avoiding a potential king's Indian defense, but Fischer immediately challenges him with pawn to d5, the Grunfeld defense, a sharp opening designed to challenge white's center with dynamic piece play. Byrne places his queen on b3, eyeing both the c4 and b7 pawns, hoping to pressure Fischer's position. But Fischer doesn't flinch. He captures the c4 pawn, and with it, he invites Byrne's queen to take an awkward position. Fischer is willing to give up the center for active piece play. Byrne recaptures the pawn with his queen, but now Fischer strikes back, pushing his pawn to c6. This move strengthens his position, though it's somewhat passive. The more aggressive move would be knight to a6, preparing a future c5 push. But Fischer is biding his time, just a few moves away from unleashing something spectacular. Byrne reinforces his center with pawn to e4, but Fischer continues his development with knight to d7. The tension is building. Fischer is not rushing into anything. His pieces are about to come to life, and the center will be his playground. Byrne places his rook on the open d-file, aiming to support his center, but Fischer counters with knight to b6, putting immediate pressure on the queen. Byrne now has to react. Fischer is dictating the tempo, his knights darting around the board, creating chaos. Byrne retreats his queen to c5, trying to maintain some presence on the board, but Fischer's bishop moves to g4, pinning Byrne's knight on f3. With that, Fischer adds more pressure, threatening to double white's pawns. The momentum is shifting. Byrne's pieces are getting tied up, and Fischer's attack is building up like a storm on the horizon. Byrne places his bishop on g5, but it's a mistake. Bishop to g5 is ineffective and places the bishop on a vulnerable square. And then, Fischer delivers his brilliant move knight to a4. The knight on c3 is a key defender of the e4 pawn, and Fischer undermines it with this shocking move. The audience gasps, it's a stroke of genius, and suddenly, Byrne's whole position is in jeopardy. Byrne retreats his queen to a3, trying to protect the e7 pawn, but Fischer grabs the knight on c3. The game has taken a dramatic turn. White's central control is gone, and Fischer's pieces are swarming in on all fronts. Byrne recaptures with his pawn, but now Fischer seizes the opportunity, grabbing the e4 pawn with his knight. With it, he claims the center and leaves Byrne's position in tatters. Fischer's control of the game is palpable now. Byrne is on the back foot, scrambling to find a way to regain balance. Byrne, desperate, grabs Fischer's bishop on e7, trying to seize some material. But Fischer plays queen to b6, threatening both the b2 pawn and building up even more pressure. The tempo is all Fischer's now. He's a step ahead, creating threats wherever he goes. Byrne finally develops his last piece, placing his bishop on c4. But Fischer immediately responds by grabbing another pawn knight to c3. Now, Fischer is winning material and is threatening even more devastating attacks. Byrne moves his bishop to c5, hoping for some counterplay, but Fischer doesn't blink. He checks with his rook to e8, forcing Byrne's king to move and tightening the noose even further. Byrne's king moves to f1, his only option to escape the check. But Fischer drops a bombshell with bishop to e6. He leaves his queen hanging, but it doesn't matter. The bishop threatens both the c4 bishop and traps Byrne's pieces. King is forced back to f1, but Fischer doesn't stop. He grabs the d4 pawn with check, piling on the misery. It's all over. Byrne is completely paralyzed, his pieces trapped, his king helpless. Again, Fischer drags Byrne's king into another check. The pattern is clear now. Fischer is playing a flawless combination of checks and threats, and Byrne has no escape. Fischer grabs another pawn, and with knight to d1, Fischer's knight captures white's rook on d1. He's now ahead by a huge margin. Byrne is left with no material advantage, no defense, and no hope. Byrne tries to fight on, but Fischer now threatens the queen and the rook with his own rook. Rook to a4. Every piece is under threat, and Byrne is powerless. Byrne grabs another pawn with queen to b6, but Fischer's knight swoops in, taking the last bit of material. It's checkmate in everything. Finally, after all the checks, material loss, and strategic brilliance, Fischer has won. Donald Byrne, despite his best efforts, never stood a chance against Fischer's calm, precise, and absolutely brilliant attack.